Welcome to the SDA Housing Podcast, brought to you by NDIS Property Australia. Before starting this episode, we need to provide a general disclaimer. Information contained in this podcast is general in nature only. It does not take into account the objectives, financial situation, or needs of any particular person. You need to consider your financial situation and needs before making any decisions based on the information in this podcast. And you should consider seeking independent and professional advice for your personal circumstances. All right, let's begin.
Hello, my name is Debbie from NDIS Property Australia, and you're listening to the SDA Housing Podcast, a show that explains, highlights, guides, and brings awareness about all things SDA in this ever-changing NDIS world. This is our monthly SDA Unlocked episode where we delve into the supply and demand data for specialist disability accommodation in different areas around Australia. This month, I have a special guest speaker. Welcome, Rob.
Hi, Debbie. Welcome.
Good to have you back on.
Yeah, great to be here and talking about a location that I know quite well. So hence why I'm here.
First time on an Unlocked? Yeah. So, and what is that location?
Ballarat outside Melbourne, about 90 minutes drive from the centre of Melbourne.
The goldfields.
Yes. Something all people will probably recognise Ballarat for.
That's right. Yeah. So now we don't always do the SDA unlocks on areas that are good and have high demand and limited supply. Sometimes we do it for the opposite reason, because there is maybe an oversupply. They may have been a good area in the past and maybe people still think it's a good area, but maybe it's not. And this is the case with Ballarat. So the reason that we're talking about this today, specifically with Rob, is because Rob knows Ballarat very well, being a local Melbourneite, and has obviously spent time up in Ballarat, very familiar with it. And also because we're constantly seeing properties for sale up there. It has recently been added to the black band list for the main NDIS lender because of the oversupply there. So what I thought we'd do is just talk about what the great things about Ballarat, what would have made it an attractive area and when that was. And I'll just very quickly touch on some of the actual figures. So, if you are still considering a SDA development in Ballarat, you might want to think twice or pivot somehow. So, Rob, tell us about Ballarat.
Yeah, no, Ballarat's a great city, not that big, but big enough. I think it's got a population of around 100,000. But in terms of getting around in Ballarat, compared to most of the capital cities, very easy. Literally, the outskirts of Ballarat to the centre of Ballarat are probably 10 to 15-minute drive. That's all. Very picturesque, beautiful. Lake Wendouree is a really nice area with a lot of beautiful older period-style homes in it. The centre of the city as well, and where Sovereign Hill is. Great charm, a lot of great cafes, restaurants. A nice spot to go to for a short stay, I would have thought. And reasonably easy access to Melbourne. As I said, it's about 90 minutes by car and only about an hour, I think, on the train. A lot of people who live in Ballarat actually commute and work in Melbourne.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So, and I think the attraction years ago in Ballarat was, I was looking at Ballarat for clients just in normal property 7 years ago. It was a really good buy. Cheap, hadn't gone up for 5 or 10 years, and great lifestyle location. And a lot of people jumped in, including SDA builds as well. And it's actually done very well over the last 5 or 6 years from a property point of view across the board. It's one of the better locations in Victoria. But as you know, it's probably tipped over the edge in the last 12 months to the point where it's started to decline a little bit. Long term, still a great area.
So has that tipped over the edge for both regular property investment as well as SDA?
Yes. Yeah, mainly because, as you'd know, Victoria's sort of a little bit on the nose a bit at the minute because of the government and the taxes and charges. So, but, it's probably getting close to being a good buy again.
Okay.
But not necessarily for SDA, as you're going to tell us in a minute, because a lot of people have jumped in. The other reason I think why they've jumped in for SDA was a few years ago, the land was cheap.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking 150, 200, 250,000 for a block in places like Lucas and Alfredton, where there was a lot of land available, which is only 5 or 10 minutes from the city.
All right. Well, that, I guess, leads straight into what is the current data telling us. Now, we had the new quarterly data from the NDIS come out about 10 days ago now. It came out on the 14th of Feb, actually, from the day we're recording this episode. So we had a look at the latest data, put together some figures, and it's not looking good if you've still got a property under construction or you're planning something in the Ballarat area. Now, what's interesting with the Ballarat region, you've probably heard us talk about the SA3 regions, the SA4 region. That's all Ballarat. So the SA4 of Ballarat is a large area. It stretches halfway up towards Bendigo. It stretches right to the westernmost edges of Melbourne, West Melbourne, parts of Melton and Bacchus Marsh, and way out west, of course, in Victoria. The SA3 region just encompasses the Ballarat suburbs, if you like. As you mentioned, some of those suburbs, but also Alfredton, also Buninyong, Delacombe, Smythes Creek, Wendouree. I hope I'm saying these names right. Miners Rest.
Yep, Wendouree, Lake Wendouree.
Wendouree, Ballarat East, North, Warren Heap. That's a...
Which one's that? Warren
Heap?
I'm not even sure where that is.
Don't know that one. Okay. Invermay, Canadian, Mount Clear, Sebastopol, Redden. So it's quite a large central area. As you said, it's got a population of around 100,000 people. So it's a decent-sized town. So when we look at the data, we look at both the SA4 data and the SA3 data because that's what the NDIS puts out. Not surprisingly, the majority of both NDIS participants and SDA participants, as well as the majority of dwellings supply, is in the SA3, particularly when we're looking at the SDA participants as well as the enrolled SDA places. We're looking at 93% are in the SA3 of the greater SA4. So we can kind of assume that what we normally have a problem with the SA4 data is it is too broad. And if we're trying to focus in on a smaller suburb or region in an SA3, some of the information, which is such as the pipeline data, the properties under construction, is only given to us at the SA4 level. In this instance, we can say, well, 93% or say 90% of the pipeline is also likely to be in that inner area. So it gives us a little bit more clarity in this case, which is good. So looking at that, we have a projected oversupply by 2027. So we're looking at about just over 2 years away because I think this is based on mid-year of 70 places. So the projected demand is 287 participants. And if we calculate the new build places, so I'm not even looking at anything that is in existing or legacy, I'm excluding those from the figures. If we're looking at just new build, anything post 2016 and what is supposedly in the pipeline, 389 places. So that is quite a significant oversupply. Yes, we do have quite a bit of existing and legacy properties, the ones that were grandfathered into the system, and we've got 25%, 24% in both the SA3 and SA4, but that's only a quarter of the places. So majority, 75% is new build. And with that big pipeline, that is not a good thing. That's not a good sight. So what is interesting about Ballarat though, and this is what gives me a little bit of hope that the long-term supply won't be so oversupplied, and that is that the demand projections for participants are 287 for 2027 and 293 for 2032. We've already got 308 participants in the area with SDA funding.
Okay.
So we don't often see that, Rob.
So they're not projecting they're going to leave, are they? They've just under
I don't know.
Quoted?
It could be a projection because I did notice the 2022 numbers were up around about the 300 mark and they were projecting a drop. and that it would go up to about 300 odd by like 2042. But so I'm not sure if this is good or bad. We may lose some participants. I don't know how they project that. How are they going to project a drop in participant numbers?
Yeah, you think it would be based on the overall population of the city, wouldn't you? And I'd be very surprised if Ballarat doesn't grow
Yeah, you would.
a fair bit rather than,
Exactly. So,
I don't think it's going to get smaller.
yeah. So that leads me to believe that the projections, and we know that these were a bit iffy anyway. It's all we've got to work on at this point in time. But if we're already ahead of where the NDIS thought the number of SDA participants would be, that may be a sign that the area is growing quicker, the number of NDIS participants is growing quicker, and therefore the number of SDA funded participants is growing quicker and may come closer to meeting that oversupply and coming more back to an equilibrium.
Yep. I think the area is definitely growing quicker than people think. There's a lot of new building in Ballarat over the last few years.
So, but still having said that, we're currently faced with a potential 70 places. So I would say that even with a big increase in participant numbers, we've already got the supply there.
Yeah, so
So,
we're on the, not good, particularly compared to other areas.
yeah, exactly. What may be of a slight benefit, not for those people who've built IL properties, because about a third of all places are IL, whereas normally we see about maybe a quarter, if that, are being built to IL standard. So there's more IL than we get in most other areas in Australia. Maybe that indicates there is still potentially a bit of a need for more of the high-level dwellings, HPSFA. Robust, we've got a lot of robust there, 82 places out of 389 potential, which is probably going to be about depending on the size of those robust properties. And what I'm looking at is a mixture of mainly one resident and two resident. But we know, Rob, don't we, that robust participants generally can't share.
Yep.
So even if we've got 40 places in two resident homes, that's probably only really 20 participants. So we've got about maybe 60 realistic places in SDA homes. That is still more than the sort of 10% average. So I think we're still okay with robust. If you were looking at doing something in Ballarat, I would suggest definitely build it to HPS, given that there is such a supply of IL. But realistically, if you're considering doing anything in Ballarat, don't. Would be our advice.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, the other thing as well, which, as you know, is important, is how many carers would be based in Ballarat, because they're not going to travel there. They'd have to live there.
That's also very true. If you've got an oversupply of places, not enough participants to fill those homes, you've also probably got an undersupply of carers. Yeah, really important. And that's certainly something that you're more familiar with, how sort of the care side of things works, Rob. So I hadn't thought of that, but yeah, you're spot on.
Well, it is important because they're not
It's
going
really
to travel.
important. Yeah. So even if it's an hour commute, a lot of carers aren't going to want to commute out of Melbourne.
Well, a lot don't even have a car, so they need the public transport as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, look, we have seen a lot of IL stuff go in there. We know that IL participants who are in the system, that were grandfathered into the system, the properties have been grandfathered in, that's all good. But what we're hearing on the ground now is that within the last few months, the NDIS has stopped giving IL funding to new participants coming onto the system, which is, I guess, their way of phasing out IL in the future. So with such a supply of IL, that worries me.
Yep.
In Ballarat. And I'd say that most of these wouldn't potentially be able to be upgraded to FA without some major structural changes. So those properties may end up being regular residentials or at best SIL if there's a need for non-SDA NDIS housing in the area, which there generally is in most locations. But of course, you're not necessarily going to get the same level of income you're expecting from a SIL home as you may have expected from an SDA home. So yeah, in a nutshell, oversupplied and yeah, we've already got too much in the pipeline. So if you do have something that has sort of is still in the planning stages, maybe I would look at pivoting and seeing what else you can do with that property rather than proceeding with it being an SDA build.
Yeah, makes sense. Particularly if they've already bought the block, I guess, and they've got to do something.
Yeah, that's right. That's likely. Or they may have already owned the block and they've got the plans in with council because they've been added to the NDIS's pipeline. So, yeah, look, Ballarat, great area, as you said, Rob, a few years ago. And those properties that are tenanted in the area are probably doing really well.
Yeah, they would have gone up. They've made money, so they'd be happy.
Yeah, but just a little word of warning. There are certainly a lot of places across Australia now that are oversupplied. Ballarat's definitely one of them.
Yeah, and the bank's telling you that, aren't they, with not lending for the majority of the Ballarat city area.
That's right. The main lender, Colcap, have currently black banned all the pretty much most of the Ballarat postcodes. So even if you needed to get funding for a NDIS development there, you won't. Not through them anyway. And there's a reason why, because they've overexposed themselves in that area already.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
So other areas like they discussed yesterday might be better.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely parts of Melbourne, very huge demand. We're very excited about what's coming up there, what's going on in Melbourne. There's still other regional areas of Victoria that are worth considering. Bendigo, which is not that far from Ballarat, a bit further up north. Still,
very similar city, Bendigo to Ballarat.
Similar city, but it has not had the development going yet, and it's still looking good there. Probably some of the other smaller regional areas, anywhere that's a bit smaller, you've got to be more careful because you just don't know, I guess, what the number of carers on the ground, as you said, Rob. You don't know what specific supply is needed. You've just got to be more careful and really work with the local providers on the ground to get your development in those areas right. But look, if you do have any questions about particular areas, you want to find out more, reach out to us at info@NDIS Property. And we're always happy to talk about anything to do with the SDA supply and demand data.
All right, great.
Thanks, Rob.
Well done. You gave us a good summary of what's happening there.
Yeah. Thanks for your input into the beautiful city of Ballarat.
That's all right. Just, I'd certainly live there. It wouldn't discourage people from living there, but maybe not for NDIS right at the minute.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, well, that wraps up today.
All right.
Thanks, Rob.
Thanks for that, Debbie. Bye, everyone.
See you all soon. Bye.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. Please make sure you are subscribed and following us so you can keep in the loop with all of our upcoming episodes. We would really appreciate it if you could leave us a 5-star rating, a written review, and to share this podcast with those that could benefit. Until next time, catch you on the next episode.